Thank you so much for coming, you guys, and thank you for coming to Summit. We are very, very excited to have you here. I've been talking with a lot of you throughout, last night and this morning, and what I always find when I come to these things now. These days, I work for a CS company, so I get to talk about this all the time. But before I worked for a CS company, I've worked with a lot of other companies where CS was only one piece of the puzzle. So it's really exciting to be able to come and talk with people who are the subject matter expertise and actually get to kind of speak the same language for once, right? All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Today we're going to be talking about scalable coverage models using a digital approach to reach not only high volume customers, but really how to engage with a digital strategy with your entire customer base. So my name is Christine Kniffick, as Kevin said. I'm our Senior Manager of Digital Success here at Totango. And who I work with is really everyone. I don't have a dedicated book of business. I work with all of our customers, not only just those that are considered digital, but everyone, because our digital engagement strategy is to work with all of our customers. I've been at Totango for a very short time. I joined with the team in June, so I'm very new, but I'm not new to Totango. I've actually been a customer of Totango's for several years before joining with the team. And worked with in CS as a whole for over 10 years before that. So I have been in your shoes and in both stations there. A fun fact about me, this is something that we're doing just so we can kind of learn with everybody and meet each other. I don't like that it says I am no longer. In a past life, I was a professional singer and wrote and performed an a cappella show in Las Vegas for several years. So that is me. And no, this is not a musical thing. All right, so what we're going to cover today. First, we're going to be talking about the benefits of a Tech Touch program. And before we even dig into that, I don't know about you, but I've heard it referred to in many, many varieties. Oh, and by the way, we will be giving out the slides later, so don't feel like you have to scramble to get everything down. Welcome to, and take pictures and all that, but you'll get the slides as well. But I've heard it referred to as tech touch, high volume, low volume, no touch, which I don't like. That's not true, right? I've heard it called digital strategy, long tail, all those things. For today, we're going to be talking about it and referring to it as tech touch, but know that whatever you're calling it within your organization, this is what we're talking about. So talking about the benefits of a tech touch program, talking about the customer success maturity model and thinking about where you are in it today. The key thing to take away from that, and we'll go into more detail, is that no matter where you fall in that model, digital strategy is going to be important for your team and important for your customers. Scalable coverage models, so going through some ideas of how you can work with those customers and across that coverage model basis. Then talking a little bit about Totango's actual digital engagement strategy and what we do to work with our customers. And then finally, we will move into Q&A with our guest expert, Amanda Hartman from Ignite. All right, so let's do it. So making the case for Tech Touch. There are benefits of a digital strategy for your organization no matter what level of maturity you're at or no matter what your size. So meaning for that, we recently did our salary and state of the industry survey. Have any of you gotten to take a look at that? Or go to the webinar? Good. Okay. Kevin and Ann just presented that, I believe, last week, 2 weeks ago? Yeah. So we do this every year, and it's something that we do because we're in an emerging industry. We release the data to let you know what's changing, what the trends are, and what you can be aware of. I was getting some questions about this just last night. So some of the things that we're finding are that we found that 83% of customer success professionals polled believe that a digital transformation is the next large initiative for their organization. It must happen. Why? Because Tech Touch is the cost-effective method to scale. How many times have you needed to go to your team or your leadership team and say, hey, I need more heads because we got more customers, right? And they said, no. Right? I mean, it would be wonderful, but that's just not the strategy, and that's not a scalable method. So the most cost-effective method for you is to have this digital strategy so that you can engage in meaningful interactions with your customers without adding a head every time you add a customer. So what you can see here, and this is all the data from 2019, so just this recently released survey, is that the majority of customer success teams, the customer success manager is handling between, and I want to make sure I get this right, most organizations have CSMs managing between 16 and 200 accounts. I've done it. I know you're doing it. And I don't know about you, but without digital strategy, I'm not going to have meaningful interaction with those people without the tools and the technology in order to engage them. So that's where that digital transformation comes in. The other notable thing from that study is that the size of customer success teams in 2019, the vast majority are under 20 people. Now, that's not to say we have our enterprise solutions, and that's not the case. I see our SAP friends in the back, and you're saying we have more than 20. I know that. But the vast majority of our customer success teams right now are under 20 people, and yet they're serving that large of a base, so they need those digital tools. I like to talk a little bit about the objections because in my career, I've worked with a lot of different CS organizations, and these always come up. So the first is my customers will be mad. And that's simply not the case as long as you are engaging with your customers in a meaningful way. So think about, we talk all the time about email when it comes to Tech Touch. Email is just one of those pieces of Tech Touch, and we'll get there. But how many times have you gotten an email from a company that really didn't apply to you? They're like, hey, we really, really want you to come back. We miss you. You haven't been around. And you're like, I was in the store yesterday, or I was on your site yesterday, right? So your customers will be upset if you do not approach it in a meaningful way and use the data to drive those interactions. So if you do it in the right way and using the right tools to make it data-driven, that doesn't apply, okay? Our leadership is not bought in to a high-volume tech touch model. This is something that always throws me for a little bit of a loop, but I've been there with my own leadership organizations, not with Totango, that's totally different. But in the past, there's always this kind of rub. And I think that that comes from the misconception that tech touch is not quality, or that tech touch is not meaningful engagement. Simply not the case as long as you use the data to drive it and make sure that you're bringing value at every interaction. And then finally, this is my personal favorite. Oops, sorry. This is my personal favorite. Our industry is too unique. My customers are very, very special. We can't use Tech Touch. You are all special snowflakes. Everybody is a special flower. Okay, but every industry and every customer will benefit from a Tech Touch model. Just because it's Tech Touch doesn't mean it's no touch, right? So let's talk a little bit about the customer success maturity model. Determining, is your organization ready for a tech touch model? I hear a lot from organizations, well, we're just not there yet. We're just not able. We're not ready. Maybe we'll do it someday. And the truth of the matter is you've got to have digital strategy no matter what stage you're in. But as we go through this, try to see if you can find yourself among this model. So we're going to be defining customer success maturity. First, we've got the early days, the heroic days. You've probably all been there, right? We'll go into some detail on this. Then you move into a managed scope where it's no longer an act of heroism to make sure that your customers are taken care of. You're starting to manage things. You're starting to build some processes. Once you start to build those processes, then they need to be repeatable, right? We're always talking about the scalable, repeatable approach. Once you start to be able to scale it and repeat it, you have to be able to measure it. Is it actually working? And then this is where we all really, really want to be, is the optimization to scale. So let's break that down a little bit. And as you move through process and technology and you develop your processes and technology, you can excel up to this top optimization. So let's break that down. There are kind of 5 pillars that you think about when you're looking at the customer success maturity model, and they are your skills of your team or individuals, your processes that you follow, your data management, hopefully managing it, the technology that you're using, and then the function of your team, what they're actually responsible for and what their team function is. So our early days, this is our hero. I've been there, I bet you have too, where the skill is individualized. I've seen a lot of organizations say to somebody, you are really kind to your customers. Can you talk to this customer too? And so it's not necessarily a specialized effort yet. It's very often, it's not a process-driven method. It's heroic efforts. It's maybe just one. I've been there. I was the customer success person, and I bet you have too, right? Data, it's separate. It may be missing, or if it is present, it's in a lot of different locations. So, go to that folder over there, and maybe it's over there, and hey, Kevin has that information, and Michelle has it over there. Nothing is brought together. It's separate and in many different areas. You might not know where to get it. There's no technology supporting it. It's missing. And the function of the team, it's like non-dedicated or wearing many different hats. I'm not saying like, oh, I onboard my customers, that's my hat, and I also work with them on renewals. That's only 2 hats. I'm talking about marketing and renewals, and oh, by the way, I'd like to form this digital strategy. Every single thing that you engage with the customers. Heroic efforts of one. Moving up, as we increase our processes and technology, we start to move into CSM basics, being able to handle escalations, being able to handle objections, manage expectations with customers. You're starting to work with processes, but you're still ad hoc. It's reactive. The data is centralized. We now know where to get it. It's organized, right? And we do have technology that's in reporting. It's for reactivity. We're not progressing there yet. Then finally, in the function, we now have dedicated roles. We have the beginnings of a team. As we move up, we then go into the repeatable phase. So you're looking at advanced CSMs. These are people who are experienced and can work with a more enterprise customer, a higher level of customer, and help with not only with the tactical day-to-day, but also work with that customer strategically to move them along your customer journey. You've got defined processes. You've got the beginnings of proactivity with your team. Your data is now integrated, so you're starting to make those connections. This is really critical. Your technology piece, you are automating critical events. Maybe not everything, but you are starting to use that technology to drive, and this is when your digital strategy starts to get pulled in. You are using that technology to drive and automate some critical events. We talked about this morning, welcoming new customers. That sounds basic, but it's something that not every team has employed today. And then finally, this team is growing. Their function is that they're growing and they're starting to iterate. When we get up to this almost top level, you're measurable, you're agile. Your teams now have specialization. You have proactive processes, and you can account for customer variability. Not every customer is the same, right? So you have to be able to have agile enough processes that you can work with the different customers and how they vary. You have data that's clean, visible to all, transparent, and your technology is adopted. You've got intelligent automation that's driving your digital strategy. And because of all these things, your team's function is now that they can actually be held accountable and are accountable for retention of customers. Before, they didn't really have anything to drive that, so they couldn't really be accountable for that retention. And then finally, this is where we all want to be, up and to the right, optimized for scale. We're evolved. Our skills are not only highly evolved, but the execution of your customer engagement is subject matter expertise level, and it's part of your brand identity. Every interaction that you're having with your customers is part of your brand's identity. Your processes are proactive, they're scalable, they're ready to go so that whenever that sale is made, or sales or millions of sales are made, you're ready for it. Your data is accurate, it's robust, it's current. The current piece is important. Your technology is intelligent, it's automated, it's now driving towards outcomes, it's goal-driven, and it supports your initiatives. And when all of those things go together, your team's function is now not just retention, but they can actually, if you choose, and I know that that's a touchy topic, own the expansion and upsell opportunities, okay? So what you may be looking at there is that you may say, well, I don't fit neatly into one of those maturity models, and that's okay. But what I like to really drive home with you is that no matter where your team is today, or maybe you have pieces in each of it, as your processes and technology drive forward, you're going to be able to bring your CS organization forward, and you need to employ the digital strategy throughout to make that happen. Checking our time. Okay, So moving into our scalable coverage models, a couple of things to take note of here. One, customer segmentation should be designed with scalability and customer satisfaction in mind. Remember that objection we talked about where people said, oh, my customers will be mad, my customers wouldn't benefit from that, from Tech Touch. That's not at all true as long as you're designing that customer segmentation to be scalable and bring value. And then regardless of where a customer is within the coverage model, they will benefit from that digital engagement. So you've probably seen this or something similar to it before, but we break down, and we give these ranges here because we know that everybody has a different size of team and things like that, but this is a general coverage model. So we break down into high touch, medium, and tech touch. So at the very, very top, these are our strategic customers. Typically a high ARR threshold or somehow otherwise strategic. Maybe it's a really important logo that you'd like to keep with your team, or it's a really good expansion opportunity later on. They most often have a designated or dedicated CSM, so you can see that ratio. There's a range depending on your business, but maybe a 1-to-1, 1-to-15 ratio for that CSM handling the book of business. As you then move through to the medium touch, we've got our enterprise customers, our key business, again, determined by ARR threshold and sometimes other factors that you may have, depending where you're going to move those customers in. Still with a designated CSM likely, but with a 1-to-16 to 175, so they can handle a larger book of business because this is medium touch. It's no longer that white glove necessarily experience. And then at the very bottom, we have the tech touch. This is our largest band of customers, and you have volume customers based on the ARR threshold. Sometimes the freemium model can fit into that as well, right? The tech touch does not have a designated CSM. Their primary method of engagement is digital methods. So they've got digital engagement. We've got one-to-many programs that we're running with them. And then they have CSAs, customer success associates, or maybe more of a little bit of a junior team that's working, but not in a designated capacity. And then bringing in CSMs as needed. And you can see that range there is 1-to-76 to N, which is not necessarily true, right? It's not infinite, but almost, as long as you employ that digital strategy. I think the thing that's missing here, though, is that digital engagement is actually present at every piece of the coverage model. No matter what, no matter where the customer falls, the correct digital engagement strategy is going to benefit them and ultimately make them more successful and give your CSMs more bandwidth to give that white glove experience. Okay? So let's talk more in depth about Totango's digital engagement strategy. Our goal is to use a holistic approach to drive value for our customers in every interaction. You need to, whether you're selling, whether you're in customer success, whether it's customer support, whether you're marketing, whoever you are, you need to bring value with every interaction or it becomes noise. So you have to drive and give something whenever you're touching those customers. So when we say that, I think about our customer engagements in 3 different buckets. And whenever we're trying to plan something out, I make sure that it falls into one of these categories. So first, we have enablement. Teach a man to fish, or teach a woman to fish. I like fishing, okay? You need to provide timely educational materials to your customers. What that means is that you need to teach your customers, and hopefully your product is intuitive enough that they don't need to be taught every single item, right? But you're teaching your customers to use your products effectively and demonstrating how they can drive outcomes. By providing them with the educational materials and the tools to get it done themselves, a self-service model, when they need it, providing the relevant information, you are bringing them that opportunity to excel without necessarily needing that touch. What you are doing is providing it when it's relevant. I noted, automatically, I noticed that you added new users. Would you like to attend our training or use our training materials? Not, hey, welcome to the team. We've been a customer for 5 years, right? So it needs to be timely and relevant. Engagement. So this bucket is giving customers opportunities to learn and interact with your company and one another. Encouraging collaboration in one-to-many situations and peer-to-peer settings. Well, first of all, you're all here, so thank you for coming. Also, you heard Ravit talk today about our community, newly launched. That is an opportunity for you as customer success experts to engage in best practice discussions and learn from each other and from Totango. Community is extremely important. And then finally, escalation. In most businesses, not all, this is not one size fits all, but in most businesses, there still has to be a path for escalation, for a chance for some interaction with your company in some capacity. As much as we would like to say that they would never need it, they will, right? And they want it, they crave it. So you've got to find a scalable way to make that happen. So our digital engagement strategy, number one, is data-driven. You guys are all familiar with this. This is one of our segment views, but we use our data. We eat our own dog food, obviously. So we use data to drive all of our interactions with our customers, again, making sure that it's that relevant, timely, it's the information that they need. Communication. So what I like to drive home is that while email is one good primary method of tech touch, it's not the only method, right? But we use a lot of it here. So we use our campaign tool, we run campaigns based on data, and we can use that information to drive giving them the information and the touches that they need. Community, as I mentioned, please join it, please start the conversation. Come on. Events. So events may not strike you as digital immediately, but it is part of the overall strategy of providing that opportunity to engage. And then finally, advocacy. So we actually, we use success blocks just like you do. And in our success blocks within Totango, we have an advocacy success block where we work on referenceable customers, NPS, CSAT, other polling things, and of course, I would be remiss if I didn't point out G2. So here's my commercial portion of the session. If you would like this very cool backpack, we need you to help us with our advocacy. This is part of our digital strategy to make sure that our customers are providing us with good feedback, and also that we can maintain a good presence with the community as a whole. So if you can help us by filling out a G2 review, you will get this cool backpack. All right. So finally, all of that to say, we provide our digital engagement strategy is to provide a holistic approach. That means that we have webinars, one-to-many workshops, proactive adoption programs. We use Totango to send out usage and user information using success beats. We have adoption initiatives that we use driving through drip campaigns, educational campaigns. We have our advocacy initiatives. We have our customer community. We have events, both corporate like the one that you're at today, but also localized. We participate in meetups that are small, organic in our communities throughout the country and throughout the world. So some of the key takeaways that I'd like you to have here today are that regardless of your organization's stage of CS maturity, you have to have a digital engagement strategy. It's a crawl, walk, run approach. So that's not to say that today you'll be able to go out and employ a full digital engagement strategy and you have tech touch. And I see the Zoom girls smiling because they know. Go to their session later, you'll see. But a digital engagement strategy, no matter what stage you're in, is critical. So if you're not sure how to get started, come see me. I meet the experts all the time, and I like to talk about this. It's my passion area. Coverage models have to be designed with scalability and customer satisfaction in mind. If all goes well, and it will, your company will not be the same size today that it is next year. So you have to be building that coverage model to scale. And then finally, quality of interaction is key. A solid digital strategy ensures that your organization will drive value with every customer engagement. You're not just reaching out to say hi, right? I mean, you could, but you better provide some value when you do, okay? So with that, I would like to invite up Amanda Hartman. She is the Director of Customer Success Operations at one of our customers at Ignite. So come on up, Amanda. So I have to thank Amanda for joining us today. We wanted to make sure that, Totango has our digital engagement strategy, but we think it's really important that you get to ask questions. So the plan here is that I'm going to ask Amanda some questions about their strategy and then open it up so that we can learn from each other. You can ask me, you can ask Amanda, and collaborate that way. Okay? All right. So, Amanda, just to give us a little bit of background, can you give us a background on Ignite and your team?
Sure. Ignite was founded in 2007. We are the only secure content platform built for the enterprise. I joined Ignite in 2014 to build out their training strategy specifically. We had nothing at that when I started. And I think we had about 15 or so CSMs at that point, and they were responsible for, as you were talking about hats, all of the hats, right? So yeah, that's kind of where we started.
Awesome. Where are you guys today? Can you tell us a little bit about your team there?
Yeah, so today we have 22 CSMs, and the CSMs are now stationed globally, and we support 16,000 customers approximately. And the CSMs specifically manage about 1,200 of our top enterprise strategic customers.
1,200, okay. Do you know off the top of your head, and it's okay if you don't, but do you know what their average book of business size is?
It's typically 60 to 70. Some CSMs have much less, right? We have that high touch segment, so some CSMs have maybe 25 at the lowest number.
Very cool. Was it always that way, or did you guys evolve that coverage model?
We definitely evolved it. It was a learning curve. It was realizing that some customers were much more needy than others.
Right.
So we started to make that book of business for that CSM much smaller so they could manage it properly.
Okay. Did you guys work on the coverage model as a team? Is it something that you did through trial and error? What was the process there?
It was definitely a trial and error.
Okay.
There was some strategy and some vision for learning about what is the ideal book of business, right, and trying to get there. To a smaller number of customers. And it really wasn't until we found Totango that we realized that we could actually scale to that ideal number of customers per CSM.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I've had the same experience where we started with one coverage model and it didn't work. And I think that the mistake that we made in that process was we were not ready, and this is not Totango when I say we were not ready to change. We had made a coverage model and we sold it to our leadership team and we sold it to the board and it was bought in and that's what we were doing. And it took us too long to change that strategy. So we really needed to work on that and iterate on it. That was a really important learning piece for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to add to that, for the tech touch segment of our business, we actually created a group at one point called Customer Engagement Managers. They were like CSMs, but they were just reactive to customers. And we ended up realizing they're really more of a support person, but they're not trained to be support. So we ended up actually funneling those questions and those reactive engagements to our support team, which was built to scale already, and that worked wonders.
That's great. So, and also in doing that, you freed up the time of your CS team, right?
Exactly. We moved those awesome. CEMs to be actual CSMs.
Yeah. Nice. Good job. So can you talk to us a little bit more about Ignite's methods for tech touch? What do you guys do? I mean, we talked through some of our strategies, but what do you guys do?
Yeah, it was actually the tech touch and what Totango could do with that was one of the first things that excited me about Totango. And it's one of the first things that we wanted to tackle. We have to do this. So we immediately implemented a onboarding campaign for our tech touch customers, those that didn't have a CSM holding their hand through it. And we did that based on the actions that they were taking within the product, which was, just mind-blowing to me that we could even do that, right?
Data-driven.
Data-driven, yeah, absolutely. So, looking at the first step that they took within the product and then knowing what the second ideal step was that we wanted them to take and pushing them to do that and teaching them how to take that next step is kind of how we approached that first campaign.
Very cool. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys use goals as part of that strategy, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. So one of the goals of the first campaign is let's log in and do something, right? And if you don't do that, well, we need to maybe take a different approach, right? So maybe it's you need some different resources, or maybe we need to have support reach out. Maybe there's some sort of technical, barrier that you're running into. And then, of course, if you do achieve the goal, then let's move you along this process as fast as possible, because you're excited to get going. We're excited to help you get there.
And I should have set that up a little bit better. For those who are not familiar, there is a function within Totango campaigns that you can identify a goal for a data-driven goal for your customer to achieve based on the campaign. So what Amanda's talking about is actually using that data to further drive the digital efforts. How have you guys balanced the feeling of, because this is a question I get a lot, the personal touch, the personal engagement versus kind of an impersonal feeling that tech touch could get into if you're not careful?
Sure. So that was the immediate concern of all my leadership team and my marketing team and everybody.
Right.
Right. Because wait, what? This is going to feel impersonal to our customers. The first thing that we did was we realized it was very tempting to go with the pretty emails and the templates and like the marketing style. The first thing we did was we just went to a very simple approach of just text-based, right? We made it feel like it's an email from a person, it's a human. And we used aliases where we didn't have a human.
I was just going to ask you that, yeah.
We made up a couple people. It's funny, actually, we had somebody call our manager of our CSM team the other day because they wanted to give us some feedback on one of the CSMs. And it was an alias. She wasn't real. So now in all of our onboarding, we have a slide that says, Sandra is not real. You can't complain about her.
I've had that experience. I've had where I've thought, I think that her name was Alex or something, but yeah. I remember thinking, Alex she reaches out to me so often and she is so helpful.
Yeah.
And then I went to a user conference and Alex is not real. But, but it worked, right?
It worked. Okay. We're even fooling our employees. Yeah. It works so well. So, we started with that. So signatures in the emails, same as if it was coming from my personal email. So making everything match, making sure communication is consistent. And again, so using the alias where it's more of an alert type of a message, and then signing from the actual CSM if it should be from the CSM. And then, of course, making absolutely sure that the CSMs and the whole team knows that we are sending something on their behalf. So when the customer asks about it, the conversation is seamless.
So you mentioned that you are making sure that the CS team knows that you're sending something on your behalf. So what I'm reading between those lines is that your digital strategy not only touches that tech touch segment of your coverage model, but all the way up.
Absolutely.
Right? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So with the tech touch model, we've actually eliminated the need for a CSM in our commercial business, so the smaller customers, which is fantastic. And we realized it's been working so well. Our churn rates are going down, renewal rates are going up in that segment. We started to move them up, right, into the CSM managed segments. And the first thing was the easiest thing was following up with NPS surveys. That was really hard for CSMs to keep up with for a while because we're serving just so many customers and end users. So that was the first thing that really took a lot of, just some of that, grunt work that, nobody wants to have to do. It's one of those tasks to free up their time to have actual conversations with customers. And then the second thing that we did was we made it part of our release readiness program. So we're communicating about product releases, new features, that sort of thing.
Awesome. Well, I could probably pepper you with questions all day long, so I'm going to stop doing that and I'd love to open it up to you guys. Do you have questions about strategy for me, for Amanda, for each other? Go for it, yeah.
So Amanda, just to dig a little deeper on this idea of CSMs being aware of when you are tech touching your customers, can you talk a little bit more about how you operationalize that? Is it about the CSM seeing that people who are part of the account team. Can you talk a little bit more about the process you use to keep them informed in that way?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing we do is we involve them in the planning process for whatever new communication we're planning, so that they're aware, they're involved, they even have a say in what the email says in itself. And then from there, it's communication with the team through meetings, through email communications, that this is when we're going to do this is what it's going to say, this is what you can expect, and yes, making sure they know where to look on the timeline to see that the email was sent. Some emails we do BCC, but other emails are so high volume that we don't, and they just know that those are going out.
Yeah. Great question. What else? Go for it, Joe.
Thanks. Organizationally, I can see where you would rely on the tech touch leaders to drive tech touch messaging. But for things such as, that you would want to run across the entire scale, do you try to maintain that at sort of like the ops director level or or is that still somehow initiated and driven down at the tech touch level, even though it's going to apply across everything, like a release note or an NPS?
So in terms of, to answer, and I can let Amanda answer as well, for us, if it's product related, it's in partnership with product. So it's CS driven in partnership with product. I work very, very closely with Ravit on any of our product communications, releases, et cetera. If it's more CS best practices, more strategy, then I'm working more with our CS team. I sit on the CS team, but I'm working more with our CS team. It's all a very collaborative process because you're right, it certainly couldn't be driven by one individual or one seat.
Yeah, same at Ignite. We have a customer success operations team. It's made of 2. Shout out to Brittany. Woo! And so we do the same thing. We have to partner with lots of different departments to depending on the messaging that needs to go out. But the great thing about having it centralized is that you learn from each different segment what might work for the other segment. So we bring that kind of oversight, into everything to each one of those segments.
2 good examples, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, so I definitely see that enablement and engagement through digital touch is really reasonable. But you mentioned the scalable method for handling escalation. Like in a way, you send an email, you put either fake email alias or real CSM email in there, and then they come back. How do you handle that, and how do you make sure that's scalable?
Sure. So one of the methods that we use, and I don't know if you have other methods too, one of the methods that we use is I mentioned that we have CSAs or associate level. We use the idea of the associate level team. This is a team that has best practices and they have this knowledge, but they're not dedicated to a particular account. And so they can write into csm@totango.com, and that team will be ready to quickly help on a scalable level so that it's not a dedicated individual, but able to provide those best practices in that regard. How about you guys?
The way we approach that is if they reply to the email, for example, it creates a support ticket. So they handle it that way. Everything funnels in through support. If they need to grab another team member, a renewals member, or CSM, then they do it that way. But it's all one funnel for responses.
So I think we have time for one more question, and if we don't get to you, I am super happy to talk to you after, and I'm sure that Amanda would be too.
Absolutely.
So anybody else? Go for it.
Can you talk a little more about those Tech Touch or CSA groups? How are you measuring those people? So is it all reactive, or are you measuring them on what they're doing proactively too?
Would you like to start? Or?
You go for it.
Okay. So what we're looking at is not only the ability to react, to come in and take a look at what is brought to them, but also to work through the proactive programs. So for example, there's an adoption acceleration program that we're developing that specifically is a proactive approach to these Tech Touch customers where the CSAs can work and develop that pool through one-to-many or workshop settings, where they can go through this acceleration program in a proactive approach rather than just that reactive. Because we all know if they're just reactive, it's support, right? Yeah, great question. All right, I think we're at time. So thank you all so much for coming. Like I said, if you have any other questions, I'm happy. Grab me anytime. I'd love to talk about it. This is my passion spot. So thanks for coming, and thank you, Amanda.